Captain Zexhari clicked her mandibles in satisfaction as her cruise ship, Crimson Talon, drifted silently through the asteroid field near the human colony of New Geneva. The insectoid Vorthak had planned this operation for months. Kidnapping a human for the underground fighting circuits of the Outer Rim would net them enough credits to retire. "Target acquired," hissed her second-in-command, Gorthul, his reptilian eyes fixed on the mining shuttle below. "Single occupant, perfect for extraction." Their third crew member, Pip, a small, furry creature from the gas giant Nimbus, nervously adjusted the stun nets. "Are we sure about this, Captain? Humans have a reputation." "Nonsense," Zexhari interrupted. "They're weak, pink creatures. Perfect entertainment for the bloodthirsty crowds on Terminus Station." The shuttle's pilot was Sarah Chen, a former Earth military engineer turned asteroid miner. She was running diagnostics on her equipment when the Crimson Talon appeared on her sensors. Before she could react, electromagnetic nets enveloped her small craft. "What the hell?" Sarah muttered, reaching for her emergency beacon. But the ship's systems were already failing as alien boarding pods attached to her hull. Zexhari and her crew burst through the airlock, expecting to find a cowering human. Instead, they found Sarah calmly sitting in her pilot's chair, hands visible, studying them with curious eyes. "Vorthak, Saurian, and Nimbusian?" Sarah said thoughtfully. "Interesting crew composition. Let me guess. Your pirates looking for a quick score?" Gorthul brandished his plasma rifle. "Silence, human. You're coming with us." Sarah stood slowly, noting their positions, equipment, and the nervous way Pip held his weapon. "All right, but you should know. I'm probably not what you had in mind." "All humans look the same to the arena crowds," Zexhari sneered. "Move!" As they escorted her to their ship, Sarah memorized every detail of the Crimson Talon's layout. The captain seemed overconfident, Gorthul was trigger-happy but predictable, and Pip was clearly uncomfortable with the whole operation. In the holding cell, Sarah sat quietly while the ship jumped to hyperspace. Her captors assumed she was paralyzed with fear. They couldn't have been more wrong. Sarah Chen hadn't survived 3 tours in the Terran Defense Corps and 5 years mining the deadliest asteroid fields in known space by being easily intimidated. She began planning. The fighting. Pits of Terminus Station reeked of ozone and spilled blood. The massive space station, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, served as neutral ground for the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. In the VIP section, crime bosses from a dozen species placed bets on the evening's entertainment. Zexhari watched, smugly as credits flowed into her account. She'd sold Sarah to Krex the Terrible, a 4-armed crime lord who specialized in exotic gladiatorial matches. "The human will last maybe 5 minutes against a Kandorian death worm," Krex rumbled, his translator crackling. "The crowd loves watching soft skins get devoured." In the preparation chambers beneath the arena, Sarah was given basic armor and a simple plasma sword. The other gladiators, hardened criminals and captured soldiers, looked at her with pity. "First, time?" asked Vex, a scarred Altarian with cybernetic implants. "Advice: die quickly. The worms like to play with their food." Sarah tested the weight of her weapon. "Thanks, but I plan to disappoint the worm." The arena erupted in cheers as Sarah entered. The crowd of aliens bayed for blood, expecting easy entertainment. Above, Zexhari preened as her cargo was announced. The Kandorian deathworm burst from the sand, 30 feet of segmented horror with acidic saliva and razor-sharp mandibles. It had killed dozens of gladiators over the years. The creature lunged. Sarah rolled aside, using her smaller size to her advantage. The worm's momentum carried it into the arena wall with bone-shaking force. "Humans are persistence hunters," Sarah called out to the confused crowd as she struck at the creature's joints with surgical precision. "We don't give up!" The worm shrieked as Sarah found the gap in its natural armor. Her blade severed critical nerve clusters, and the massive beast collapsed, paralyzed but alive. The arena fell silent. Krex's translator sparked as he stammered in disbelief. In the viewing section, Gorthel's jaw dropped open. "Impossible," Zexhari whispered. Sarah raised her weapon to the crowd. "Who's next?" The crowd's silence turned to thunderous approval. They hadn't seen a kill this clean in years. Krex's eyes gleamed with new calculations. This human could make him rich. But Sarah wasn't done surprising everyone. As arena guards moved to escort her back to the cells, she spoke loudly enough for the crowd to hear. "I invoke the right of escalation." Even the crime bosses gasped. The right of escalation was an ancient tradition. A gladiator could demand to face increasingly dangerous opponents with freedom as the ultimate prize. No one had attempted it in over 50 years, and no human had ever survived the first challenge, let alone demanded more. 3 days later, Sarah had won 7 consecutive matches. The arena crowds grew larger with each fight, and betting had reached astronomical levels. She'd defeated creatures that had killed hundreds of other gladiators, using tactics that seemed impossible to her alien audiences. Zexhari watched from Krex's private box, her confidence evaporating. She'd expected easy credits, not this nightmare. Worse, word was spreading through the criminal underworld about the impossible human. "Your merchandise is causing problems," Krex rumbled, his forearms gesturing at the chaos in the betting pits. "Some are saying humans aren't what we thought." In her cell, Sarah tended to her wounds while planning her next moves. The Gladiator quarters had become a gathering place where fighters shared stories about humanity, stories that painted a very different picture than galactic media suggested. "My people fought humans in the border wars," said Thex, a veteran Khazari warrior. "Command told us they were weak, but they never stopped coming, never surrendered. Lost 3 ships to 1 human frigate that should have been scrap." Vex nodded, grimly. "Heard similar stories. Human merchants in the outer colonies. They survive on worlds that would kill most species." Sarah listened, realizing how carefully humanity had been portrayed to the galaxy. The truth was, most species found humans terrifying when they learned what Earth was really like. A high-gravity death world with extreme weather, predators that hunted in packs, and a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through sheer stubbornness. "They don't know," Sarah murmured. The next day, her 8th opponent was a Thraxian bone crusher, 12 feet of armored fury that had never lost a fight. As Sarah entered the arena, she noticed new faces in the crowd. Word had spread beyond Terminus Station. The bone crusher's opening charge would have pulped most opponents. Sarah ducked under its swing and drove her blade into its knee joint with devastating precision. As the creature stumbled, she leaped onto its back, riding it like she was breaking a horse. "Humans domesticated wolves," she shouted, as she wrestled the massive alien into submission. "We turned the apex predators of our world into pets." The crowd's cheers died as the implications sank in. The bone crusher, undefeated for 5 years, tapped out rather than let this small human snap its neck. In the VIP section, crime bosses began making urgent calls. Intelligence networks activated across the galaxy. The carefully maintained fiction about human weakness was crumbling. Zexhari felt sick. She'd thought she was kidnapping prey. Instead, she'd captured a predator and put it on display for the entire criminal underworld to see. "I want her eliminated," she hissed to Gorthel. "Tonight." But it was too late. The word was already spreading. Humans weren't the weak creatures they pretended to be. The assassination attempt came at midnight. Gorthel led a team of hired killers into the gladiator quarters, expecting to find Sarah sleeping. Instead, they found empty cells and trap wires strung across the corridors. Sarah had turned the underground maze into her hunting ground. "She's picked us off one by one," Gorthel reported to Zexhari, his voice shaking over the comm. The human, she moves like a ghost, knows exactly where to strike to disable without killing. Above in the station proper, panic was spreading. Word of the human revelation had reached the Galactic Council. Emergency sessions were being called. Trade routes with human space were being questioned. Ambassador Corvith of the Stellar Alliance arrived on Terminus Station with a full diplomatic escort, demanding Sarah's immediate release. The spindly alien's usual composure was cracked with, "Worry! Do you understand what you've done?" he demanded of Krex. Humans have been carefully integrated into galactic society based on the understanding that they were manageable. Krex's translator crackled nervously. The gladiator fights are legal entertainment. This isn't about legality, Corvith snapped. It's about the fact that you've revealed to every criminal organization in the galaxy that our intelligence about humanity was completely wrong. Meanwhile, Sarah had systematically dismantled Gorthul's assassination team. She'd used the station's maintenance shafts to move unseen, picking off the killers with improvised weapons and the kind of patience that only apex predators possessed. The last assassin, cornered in a storage bay, begged for mercy. "Please, we're just following orders." Sarah studied him coldly. "Your captain kidnapped me for entertainment. Tell me, what's entertaining about this?" She left him tied up for station security to find, along with a message. "The Human Diplomatic Corps will want to speak with Captain Zexhari." In her luxurious quarters, Zexhari was already packing. The criminal underground was buzzing with new information about humanity. Stories that had been dismissed as propaganda were being reevaluated. The human military's reputation for never leaving anyone behind. Their tendency to hold grudges across generations. Their habit of turning warfare into science. "Captain," Pip squeaked over the intercom. "We need to leave. Now. Human ships are already en route." But it was too late. Sarah Chen stood in the doorway, no longer wearing a gladiator's rags but the crisp uniform of a Terran Defense Corps engineer, which station records now showed she'd never actually left. "Hello, Captain," Sarah said pleasantly. "I believe we need to talk." Zexhari's mandibles clicked in terror. The joke, she realized, had definitely been on them. The conference room aboard the human diplomatic vessel New Horizons was uncomfortably warm for most of the alien representatives. Ambassador Chen, Sarah's sister, presided over the emergency meeting with the kind of calm that came from growing up on a world where everything tried to kill you. "The cat's out of the bag," Ambassador Chen said simply. "Or perhaps I should say, the predator is out of its cage." Around the table, representatives from major galactic powers shifted nervously. The Vorthak delegates' mandibles chittered anxiously. The Saurian trade minister's scales had turned a sickly yellow color. "We had agreements," protested Ambassador Corvith. "Humanity agreed to limited expansion, restricted military development." "Based on the assumption that we were harmless," Ambassador Chen interrupted. "That assumption has now been publicly disproven in the most dramatic way possible." On Terminus Station, Sarah walked freely through corridors where crime bosses stepped aside and hardened criminals offered respectful nods. She'd won her freedom after 12 consecutive victories, but more importantly, she'd shattered a galaxy-wide misconception. Zexhari, Gorthul, and Pip sat in a holding cell, awaiting trial for kidnapping a Terran citizen. The Vorthak captain had stopped clicking her mandibles entirely, a sign of complete defeat among her species. "I don't understand," Pip whispered. "The intelligence reports said humans were weak." Sarah paused outside their cell. "Your intelligence was based on how we interact with each other," she said kindly. "Humans are incredibly gentle with things we care about. The mistake was assuming we cared about you. The implications were already reshaping galactic politics. Human colonies that had seemed vulnerable were revealed as fortress worlds inhabited by creatures who considered extreme weather pleasant autumn days. Trade agreements were being renegotiated. Military alliances were being reconsidered. In the diplomatic meeting, Ambassador Chen laid out humanity's new position. We've been content to play the role of junior partners in galactic civilization. That changes now. What do you want? The Altarian delegate asked. Equal representation in the Galactic Council, fair trade agreements, and prosecution of those who prey on human citizens. Ambassador Chen's smile was pleasant and absolutely terrifying. We're very patient people, but we do hold grudges. The meeting dissolved into chaos as delegates made frantic calls to their governments. The galaxy's power structure was shifting, and everyone knew it. Later, as the New Horizons prepared to depart Terminus Station, Sarah found herself on the observation deck with her sister. "Think they'll learn?" Sarah asked. Ambassador Chen watched the alien ships fleeing the station in obvious panic. "Eventually, humans are excellent teachers. And if they don't, then they'll discover what happens when you try to cage a predator. Species that spent 10,000 years climbing to the top of the food chain on a death world." Ambassador Chen's reflection in the viewport showed the same calm expression their mother had worn when explaining why the neighbor's bully would never bother them again. The joke, Sarah reflected, had definitely been on them. But the lesson was just beginning. End.